Last month, my grandfather Richard gave me his $120 million tech firm. My name is Madison Parker, and I am 22 years old, when my mother, Catherine, and her new husband, Robert, attempted to take away everything that should have been the happiest day of my life. It swiftly became a nightmare. After everything Grandpa had done for us, I never thought my own mother would turn on me. However, when Mom had me decide between my house and my inheritance, Grandpa laughed in a way that made Robert shiver. If you are viewing this, kindly click subscribe and inform me of your viewing location. I can assure you that every minute of this journey through business intrigue, family treachery, and sweet justice is worthwhile. To comprehend why Grandpa Richard appointed me as his heir, you must be aware of our family's past. My granddad was the main person who reared me, after my father. When I was 10 years old, Richard's only son passed away in a vehicle accident. After a year, my mother, Catherine, who had been upset initially, became more focused on her social life than on raising a bereaved child. Grief is handled differently by your mother. Every time I cried after Catherine missed another school function, Grandpa would explain. His eyes were disappointed, yet he never said anything negative about her. In the tech sector, Richard Parker was a legendary figure. In the early 1980s, armed only with a sharp mind and a strong will, he founded Parker Innovations in his garage. The business was worth millions when I was born, and by the time I graduated from high school, it had grown globally and was valued at more than $100 million. Grandpa continued to work hard and maintain his humility in spite of his prosperity. Maddie, character isn't defined by money. The actions do, he would tell me. I spent most summers and weekends at my grandfather's estate after Dad passed away, while other kids my age were at pool parties or the mall. I was learning everything I could about Parker Innovations by following Richard about the office. I started assisting with simple market research by the age of 16. I started attending development sessions when I was 18. Many of the staff members became like family as they saw me grow up. At Stanford, I majored in business administration and minored in computer science, working each summer at the company. Grandpa was proud when I showed interest in the family business, but he never forced me to join it. He would comment that you have your father's mindset and my tenacity. That mixture is quite potent. In the meantime, Catherine, my mother, went through a string of progressively dubious relationships. When she felt like it, Catherine was lovely and charming, but her taste in men was awful. She appeared to be attracted to men who were the reverse of my father, bright, careless, and frequently opportunistic. Robert Blackwell followed. My mother brought him to a family dinner 6 months ago, which is how he came into our life. Robert wasn't like her typical self. He used to work at Tex Fair as a sales manager. One of our rivals was articulate and well-groomed. My mother was very enamored with him. Grandpa and I saw the calculating glint in his eyes as he looked around our house. But Catherine didn't. Asked scathing questions about the firm and appeared more concerned with gaining access to Grandpa's business contacts than establishing a rapport with us. That dude is untrustworthy. After supper, Grandpa told me in private, Catherine doesn't have his support. My mother, however, was enamored. They were married in a spectacular ceremony within 3 months, which Robert somehow persuaded Catherine to pay for in full, as maid of honor. I stood next to her and forced a smile as I observed Robert's eyes frequently straying to the affluent guests. Grandpa had extended the invitation. Robert said he wanted to concentrate on being a family guy and left his career after the wedding. He introduced himself as a member of the Parker family business and started showing up at corporate events without being invited. When he tried to attend strategy sessions or seek secret information, staff members would call me perplexed. Grandpa's health started to deteriorate during this period. Observing Robert circle his life's work like a vulture was adding to his stress, and he had never fully recovered from a heart attack 2 years before. While we still had time, I started to learn everything I could from Grandpa and take on more responsibility in the company. One evening, as we were going over quarterly reports in his home office, he informed me, "I'm not worried about the company, Maddie. When I'm gone, I worry about you and your mom." I told him I could look after myself. However, we were also aware that Catherine was susceptible to manipulation, particularly by individuals like Robert. who appeared to have a remarkable talent for spotting and taking advantage of her weaknesses. I was unaware at the time that Grandpa had already put a plan in motion that would make us all reveal our actual selves. On a gorgeous September Saturday, I celebrated my 22nd birthday. Grandpa had insisted on holding a little party at his estate, but he had set the bar at 50 people. There was a jazz quartet playing by the pool, and the expansive garden was decked out with sparkling lights. Family members, close friends, and a number of important Parker Innovations executives were on the guest list. My mother looked lovely in an expensive outfit that likely cost more than most people's monthly salaries, and Catherine and Robert arrived stylishly late. The forced smile never quite reached Robert's eyes, and he wore a bespoke suit. Catherine gave me 2 cheek kisses and said, "Happy birthday, darling. You look beautiful. Do you not think Robert, she looks beautiful?" With his eyes already searching the crowd for crucial business contacts, Robert nodded. "Very good. Is this Tech Venture Capital's Walter Chen instead?" I thanked them for coming and chewed back a report about his priorities. Over the course of the evening, I observed Robert cornering several CEOs and having more awkward interactions with them. After avoiding one of these encounters, my cousin Natalie drew me aside. "I was just asked by your stepdad how much I believed Uncle Richard was worth overall." She muttered, "Like, who made that question?" Grandpa tapped his glass to get everyone's attention at around 9 o'clock. He walked to the middle of the patio, leaning slightly on his cane, and the audience fell silent. His voice is still powerful and authoritative despite his physical weakness. He led the audience in a chorus of "Happy Birthday," saying, "First, let's all wish my beautiful granddaughter a happy birthday." As everyone applauded, I stood next to him and flushed. Since the day Madison was born, she has been the source of my happiness. After her father passed away, Grandpa carried on. She became even more valuable to me, my son. I grabbed his hand when his voice faltered a little. "I want to make an announcement today," he added, his shoulders straightening. "I've made the decision to retire after leading Parker Innovations for 50 years. The crowd echoed with murmurs. I, along with everyone else, was unaware of this. I gave him a startled look, but all he did was wink at me. Eats, fresh ideas, youthful blood, and unflinching integrity are all need to succeed in the current market. I have had the good fortune to see Madison develop into a bright, diligent young lady who knows not just the ins and outs of Parker Innovations, but also its core values. When I recognized where this was going, my heart started to race. Suddenly, across the garden, I noticed Robert listening intently. He stopped talking in the middle of a sentence. I am thereby giving Madison majority ownership and control of Parker Innovations as a birthday present. Exclamations and gasps sprang out all around us, effective instantly. Grandpa grinned at me while I stood stunned. The executives of the company, who had known me since I was a child, started cheering, swiftly followed by the majority of the visitors. While my relatives exchanged astonished and envious looks, my attention was pulled to Robert and my mother. Catherine's eyes were wide with surprise and something else, and her grin was tight. Anger, perplexity. Robert made no effort to conceal his response. His jaw clenched so tightly that I could see a muscle twitching in his cheek as his face turned dark red. "Richard," as she walked toward us, Catherine exclaimed, "This is quite unexpected," in an artificially light voice. "Shouldn't we have private conversations about such significant family issues?" Grandpa's smile was constant. "Catherine, there's nothing to talk about. The documentation has already been completed. All the documentation are here with my lawyers. Walter Freeman, Grandpa's lawyer for more than 30 years, appeared with a leather portfolio just in time. Richard, everything is in order. To finish the transfer, Madison's signature is all that is required." The hour that followed went rather quickly. My hand was trembling a little as I signed document after document, realizing that I was now in charge of a $120 million firm. Many of the executives who came up to congratulate me did so with sincere excitement. "Your dad would be very pleased." Our Chief Technology Officer, Susan Chen, hugged me and murmured. All the while, I could see Robert whispering angrily to my mother, whose joyous exterior was crumbling every second. I was aware that they would fight to keep this from happening. But for the time being, I let myself experience the gravity and awe of my grandfather's remarkable gift. Grandpa took me to a peaceful area of the garden while the celebration went on all around us. "Is it your fault because I didn't warn you?" His eyes were sparkling as he inquired. I said, "I'm more like shocked. Are you certain about this, Grandpa? It's the labor of your life." He grasped my hands. "I've been getting you ready for this all your life. Maddie, do you know what Parker Innovation is all about? Innovation that enhances lives is more important than merely making money. More than anyone else in the world, I have faith in you to continue that." I was moved to tears by his faith in me. I pledged not to disappoint you. He looked over my shoulder at Robert, who was now at the bar, finishing his third scotch, and said, "I know you won't. Additionally, don't be concerned about vultures. Throughout my work, I have dealt with men much like him." My first indication that Grandpa had foreseen all that was going to happen should have been the cryptic phrase. Around midnight, the final visitors left, leaving only the family and Grandpa's enormous home. Robert loomed behind Catherine like a dark cloud as she cornered me as I was assisting the staff in cleaning up the kitchen. She murmured, her voice pinched in the study, "We need to talk." I followed them now, feeling that the altercation that had been simmering all night was going to blow up. Citing exhaustion from the long evening, Grandpa had previously went to his bed. Robert used needless force to shut the study door after us. It felt abruptly cramped in the cozy, book-lined chamber that had always been a haven. What on earth was that? As she paced in front of Grandpa's desk, Catherine made a demand. "It seems to have been Grandpa's retirement present," I answered, attempting to speak steadily. "Like you." I was taken aback. "This is utterly careless," Robert interrupted. He honed his sails, leaving his voice for something more challenging. "You just graduated from college. A business that large is impossible for you to manage." I made my shoulders square. "Since I was 16, I have been employed at Parker Innovations. I am intimately familiar with the business." Catherine dismissively waved her hand. "Managing the entire business is not nearly the same as working summers while studying. That's why." Robert answered, taking a step forward. "We've agreed that while you get the hang of things, I'll step in as CEO." I was briefly taken aback by its audacity. "Please pardon me. It's really logical. As though they had practiced this," Catherine went on. "Robert has expertise as an executive. He will oversee daily operations while you complete your studies." "Not at all," I responded firmly. "I became the CEO and owner thanks to Grandpa. The documents are signed. It's finished." Robert's act of rationality vanished. "You entitled little princess. Pay attention. Instead of a girl pretending to be an entrepreneur because her grandfather felt sorry for her, this organization requires seasoned leadership. Robert." Though she looked more interested in his tone than his topic, Catherine exclaimed. He said, "No, Catherine, she must hear this. Your granddad is an emotional old man who makes illogical choices. You will never be accepted as CEO by the board. You will be laughed out of the building by them." Anger made my hands shake, but I spoke steadily. "I've known the board all my life. Many of them have already extended their support and congratulated me." He scoffed. "Support that will vanish when they realize you're in over your head." "Be sensible, Madison. Let me take care of the business. The title and profits are yours to keep." That's when I saw it all plainly. This was something Robert had planned from the start. My mother, Mary, courted Grandpa and set himself up to become the company's leader. He simply didn't anticipate that Grandpa would give me everything without consulting any of them. "No," I answered emphatically. "I am Parker Innovations' owner and CEO. I was picked by Grandpa, not you." Catherine's face became stern. "Madison, it's not just about you. This relates to the legacy of our family. Robert and I are attempting to keep you from stealing my firm and committing a grave error." Incredulously, I asked, "When it's family, it's not theft," Robert retorted. "However, it's okay if you want to be tough about this. This is how it will be. You may either pack your bags and leave this house, or you can agree to let us run the business. As I gazed at my mother, I waited for her to refute this ridiculous command. She didn't. I refused to give up my inheritance to your 5-minute husband. Therefore, you would throw me out. With a little break in my voice, I questioned her. The eyes of Catherine blazed. Robert is my spouse, and this is my home to Madison. Yes, you should leave this family if you are unable to respect our position. It was a deep-seated betrayal. This man was chosen over me by my own mother. All right, I murmured, scarcely raising my voice above a whisper. I'll leave. Catherine sighed and told him not to be emotional. After accepting Robert's suggestion, the whole family can proceed. I turned to the door and grasped for the doorknob, murmuring, "Some family." From the doorway came a faint laugh. Grandpa was still wearing his party attire and leaning on his cane as we all turned around. His eyes had a fire in them that I hadn't seen in a long time. Well, he remarked in a light-sounding voice. This family conversation is fascinating. Isn't it? Robert became noticeably paler. We were just talking about the changeover. Richard, I heard everything you had to say. Grandpa interrupted him. And I have to admit that you have revealed your hand earlier than I anticipated. Robert, are you not a patient man? He entered the room and turned to look at my mom. Catherine, I'm not shocked, but I'm disappointed. Please, Dad. Catherine started. The grandfather extended his hand. He turned to me and said, Madison, pack your bags now. You're sleeping at my guest house tonight, not because you're being evicted. Plan B will be put into action tomorrow, a backup plan. For the first time, Robert sounded concerned. Grandpa grinned icily. Robert, did you really believe I would turn over my life's work without protection from vultures like you? You haven't been in business as long as I have. Grandpa spoke softly to them both as I was leaving the room. You've made a grave error of judgment. You'll see how serious it is by morning. Tears were running down my cheeks as I left. Grandpa's firm presence behind me, however, made me feel something else as well. The beginnings of the righteous rage that would sustain me through the rest of the process. Even though Grandpa's guest house was larger than most people's permanent residences, it felt cold and empty that night. I didn't get much sleep. I kept mentally reliving the confrontation. My sadness had solidified into resolution by dawn. My mom had already made up her mind. I'd make mine now. At precisely 8 o'clock. Grandpa showed up wearing what his staff referred to as his war suit and a heavy folder. He saved his best-fitted suit for crucial discussions. Do you get enough sleep? Knowing full well that I hadn't, he inquired. Not really, I said. Pouring coffee for both of us. Excellent. He gave a nod. I was surprised. Rather than complacency, anger and fury are better fuel. Today, you'll need that fire during breakfast. In the 3 weeks since Robert and my mother had returned from their honeymoon, Grandpa gave a summary of what had happened. Robert had begun routinely attending board meetings, implying that Grandpa's health was impairing his ability to make decisions. He had reached out to important clients and presented himself as Parker's future boss. He had even started wooing a larger tech company that was notorious for deconstructing acquisitions and selling their components as a possible buyer for the business. How are you aware of all of this? Surprised, I asked. Grandpa's eyes glowed because ever since the day he proposed to your mother, I've had him looked into. He moved a few pictures across the table. Robert is meeting with executives from the future. Our rival, Robert and a woman who wasn't my mother appeared to be getting along. Jeffrey Collins, the CEO who has a history of hostile takeovers, shakes hands with Robert. His name isn't even Robert Blackwell. Grandpa went on. Robert Schwartz is here. He has had 2 identity changes, marrying rich ladies, seizing their fortunes, and then vanishing with as much as he can liquidate is his specialty. I was taken aback by the realization. Is Mom aware Grandpa's face grew softer? The things your mother wants to see are visible. She has always done so. He clarified that even if the ownership was legally transferred, we still needed to act fast. Robert was already moving. I learned how aggressive those actions were by midday that day. My access card was rejected when I got to Parker Innovations' offices. I was denied entry by a new security guy who didn't know me, and without permission. Our CTO, Susan Chen, came down to vouch for me after I contacted her, appearing perplexed and worried. A memo has been sent. As we took the elevator to the executive floor, she gave us an explanation. Robert Blackwell, who identified himself as the interim CEO by family appointment, stated that all executive actions must be approved by him while the transition is being reviewed by the board. I balled my hands into fists. Here, he has no power. Most of us are aware of that, Susan stated cautiously. However, he has Catherine's support and has been able to persuade several of the more recent board members. It was worse than I thought it would be. Robert had taken over my father's office, which was supposed to be mine, and set up shop like he was supposed to. He flashed his trained smile when I challenged him. Well done, Madison, for entering. We must talk about your responsibilities during this time of change. Leave my office, I said plainly. His grin grew stony. I've been speaking with a number of board members with your mother. They are worried about how much experience you have. I will be in charge of operations until those are resolved. It is not up to you to decide that. At the emergency meeting, the board will make the final decision. I have made a call for tomorrow. His response was fluid. Why don't you observe some department heads in the interim? Acquire a thorough understanding of the business. When I attempted to enter the executive computer system, I was being treated like an intern in my own organization. My credentials had been restricted. I discovered, by mid-afternoon, all employees received an email informing them that, for 3 days during the leadership change, Robert's permission was required for all departmental actions. This nightmare scenario persisted. Several offices had had their locks replaced by Robert. Concerned about my emotional stability, Catherine was phoning board members. There were rumors that I was being benched because of my lack of experience or perhaps because I was abusing drugs. A number of staff members who showed support for me ended up being put on unwelcome projects, unable to go back to my mother's house, where I had been living since college. I was staying at my grandfather's guest house. Every night I returned home angry and defeated. Grandpa would gently ask, "Are you ready to fight back yet?" Every morning, I finally started crying on the 4th day. They're triumphant. Grandfather, everyone is turning against me because of him. Even those who have known me my entire life are beginning to have their doubts. Grandpa put down his newspaper and gave me a serious look. Have you had enough of pitying yourself? I was astonished at how direct he was. What did you think it would be simple to take over a $120 million firm, Madison, that a 22-year-old woman would be accepted as their leader without any tests? Robert isn't the only one involved. This is your first challenge as a leader. He bent over. Your entire career will be defined by how you react now. You have 2 options. Either you stand up and show me why I picked you, or you give in to a scammer. Although his comments hurt, they also made me feel something. What is the backup plan? At last, I inquired. Grandpa grinned, but it was the shark-like grin that had made him a business reputation, not his kind grandfather's smile. I assumed you wouldn't inquire. Grandpa disclosed to me that day that I owned 70% of Parker Innovations, but there were a number of stipulations in the ownership transfer agreements that neither Robert nor my mother were aware of. Grandpa kept 25% of the business for himself, while the remaining 5% was divided among the general public. However, he showed me the document and stressed that this is the most crucial phrase. He cited Section 23B, which explicitly specified that no executive positions may be hired or fired, no financial transactions over $10,000 could take place, and no structural restructuring could take place during the first year of transition without the specific written agreement of both Madison Parker and Richard Parker. He cannot access corporate funds unless both of us give our approval. I understood exactly, and Grandpa nodded. Robert can spend all of his time at that office, but he is unable to take any meaningful action. In addition, for months, Grandpa had been training important executives. We'd got informal assurances from James Wilson, our CFO, Susan Chen, our CTO, and a number of other veteran staff that I would eventually take over. They had been told to record whatever Robert did and to seem to comply with him. Grandpa explained. The company has been loyal to me for decades. The Parker family would put up with the majority of the old guard. They have been watching to see if you will give up or fight for your inheritance. Grandpa referred me to Martin Ross, a business lawyer who focused on hostile takeover defenses. That evening, we came up with our counterattack together. The meeting of the emergency board? For tomorrow. Robert called. Martin grinned. The stage is ideal for our goal. As we worked out our plan, something changed inside of me. Even while the hurt and betrayal still existed, they now served as fuel for a resolve I was unaware I had. Robert believed he was dealing with a young girl who was easily intimidated and controlled. He was going to find out how mistaken he was. As we were wrapping up our preparations, Grandpa said, "One more thing. Your mom." My daughter became more agitated. "How about her? She's not evil, but she's wrong," he added softly. Just as Robert has attempted to control everyone else, he has also attempted to control her. Keep it in mind tomorrow. I gave a nod, but at that moment, forgiveness seemed unattainable. My company would need to be saved tomorrow. If at all possible, reconciliation with my mother would have to wait. The whole top level of our headquarters was dedicated to Parker Innovations' boardroom, which had floor-to-ceiling windows providing a broad perspective of the city. By 9 a.m., the company's legal team, important executives, and all 12 board members were gathered around the enormous wood table. My mother sat next to Robert, who occupied my grandfather's customary place at the head of the table. He wore an air of trained concern and a suit that cost a fortune to tailor. Grandpa and Martin Ross and I came in, obviously unannounced. Richard. For a moment, Robert stood agitated. "Because of your health issues, we didn't anticipate you joining us." "I'm in good health for this," Grandpa said sweetly. I took a seat next to him, Martin at my side, halfway down the table. Robert bounced back fast. "We're happy you're here, though we are in the midst of a difficult shift," as I was about to convey to the board. Of course, Madison's inheritance is legally enforceable. Placing the entire business under such inexperienced leadership raises severe issues. Many of the board members nodded, especially the more recent hires who were unfamiliar with our family. Robert went on to describe his temporary leadership plan, which would essentially give him command and reduce me to the role of a symbolic leader. When he was done, he looked around with anticipation. This compromise, in my opinion, ensures the stability of the business while best serving the interests of all parties. "Do you have any objections?" in a tone that implied none would be reasonable, he questioned. "Yes," I replied, obviously getting to my feet. "I fully disagree." Everyone looked at me. Robert's grin grew strained. "I know this is emotional for you, Madison," I interrupted. "This isn't about emotions. The facts are at issue here. Information that must be known by this board prior to any judgments being made." Martin handed out packets to every board member inside after I nodded. Comprehensive background information about Robert Blackwell is available. Or Robert Schwartz. Perhaps Robert's face was paler than before. You'll see records of 3 prior marriages, all to affluent women. As I go on, within 2 years, all 3 of the marriages dissolved, and Robert left with sizable fortunes. Evidence of his interactions with Parker Innovations' rivals and possible purchasers may also be found. Members of the board started to whisper as they looked over the papers. As she read, my mother's expression changed from bewildered to appalled. "This is ridiculous," Robert sputtered. "These aren't real." "Everything has been confirmed by several sources," Martin seamlessly interjected. Bringing up 2 ex-wives' police reports, I continued. "Since before he married my mother, Robert has been preparing for this. He never intended to assist in managing this business. Instead, his aim was to seize its assets and sell what was left to the highest bidder." Our CTO, Susan Chen, raised her voice. "I can attest that Mr. Blackwell has contacted at least 3 possible customers and has been gaining unauthorized access to private product development data. Our CFO, James Wilson, said that he has also asked for extraordinary access to our offshore accounts and detailed inquiries regarding the speed at which particular assets could be sold. Robert got up suddenly. This is a well-planned assault on my persona. Will you allow them to talk like this about your spouse? Catherine. My mom was looking at her folder of pictures. 3 weeks ago, Robert was pictured with another woman. Documentation of funds. He had already switched to his own accounts from hers. She had a pale face. Is this accurate? Before Robert could reply, she looked up at him and whispered. Grandpa's throat cleared. The board needs to be aware of one more thing. Martin handed him another document after he nodded. Grandpa said, This is the full ownership transfer agreement. As you can see, Section 23B mandates that Madison and I have joint authorization for all major business decisions made during the first year of transition. As he read, William Taylor, the board president and a 30-year friend of Grandpa, adjusted his spectacles. In other words, Robert is practically powerless to implement any of the improvements he has suggested. Absolutely none. Grandpa attested that Madison controls 70% of this business. I keep 25%. The public has the remaining 5%. Robert has 0%. Robert's facade fell apart entirely. The old man is manipulated by you. This was put up by you from the start. I safeguarded both my granddaughter and my business, Grandpa gently answered. Any competent business owner would take this action. As Robert persisted in yelling charges and the board members talked in stunned whispers, the meeting descended into anarchy. My mother sat motionless, gazing at the proof of Robert's dishonesty. At last, William Taylor issued an order. We've heard enough. I think the purpose of this emergency meeting was to discuss leadership issues, and I believe those issues have been fully addressed. He surveyed the table. I propose that, absent any objections, we formally acknowledge Madison Parker as Parker Innovations CEO with immediate effect, and that Richard Parker continue to serve in an advising role in accordance with their agreement. Even Robert's new supporters turned against him, and the vote was unanimous. Roberts hurried to the door as the meeting came to an end, stopping only to give me a quick glance. It's not over yet. Your mother and I are still married. I'm still in control. Grandpa heard and moved to separate us. Actually, Catherine's house has already been cleared of your belongings. Robert, divorce paperwork are being prepared, and the locks have been changed. Additionally, you may wish to check your bank accounts. Did you make any transfers from Parker while an inquiry is conducted? Funds have been frozen. I noticed for the first time that Robert's eyes were filled with genuine terror. My mother turned away as he glanced in her direction, tears running down her cheeks. I gestured to the security officers outside the boardroom and added, Security will escort you out. Don't waste time gathering your office supplies. They will be forwarded to your lawyer after being packed. I turned to the executives and board members who watched in a mixture of amazement and awe as Robert was escorted off. Still demonstrating, I said. I want to thank all of you for your support. I was surprised by how steady my voice sounded. I'm aware that a lot of you are worried about my experience, and those worries are legitimate. I was brought up in this company, yet I still have a lot to learn. I am aware of its principles and goals, and I swear to do everything in my power to carry on my grandfather's heritage while guiding Parker Innovations into the future. They approached me one by one to shake my hand or say something encouraging. Susan Chen gave me a firm hug. Your dad would be very proud, she muttered. Grandpa and my mother, who appeared completely broken, were the only people left in the boardroom after it cleared. She cried, I'm so sorry, Madison. I didn't think he would. In order to let her feel the hurt of her treachery, I wanted to remain furious. But now that I was staring at her, I could see what my grandfather was trying to tell me. She was flawed and deceived by a skilled con artist, but she wasn't bad, I said. We'll talk later, Mom. I haven't yet accepted or rejected her apologies. You probably need some time to take it all in. With a sorrowful nod, she departed, being taken home by Grandpa's helper. When we were alone ourselves, Grandpa said, "That was well handled. Robert as well as your mom." Suddenly tired, I collapsed into a chair. The fact that we succeeded still amazes me. Grandpa was sitting next to me. This was only the start. Madison. Managing this business will need dealing with difficulties like this on a regular basis. Ideally, not from family members. I gazed at the skyline of the city. I'm starting to realize how big my new reality is. I'm afraid. Grandfather. Despite his advanced age, his grip on my hand remained firm. A healthy fear keeps you alert. But keep in mind what you accomplished today. Recall how you defended this business and yourself. I picked you for that reason. You have the courage to carry out the necessary tasks. Not because you are my grandchild. I smiled for the first time in days, not a forced or bold one, but a genuine one. What comes next? Then Grandpa said, getting up and pointing to the glass wall that revealed the CEO's office. After settling at your office, you start working. You have a business to manage. As I formally assumed control of Parker Innovations, the following 2 weeks were a flurry of activity. Even though the board had officially approved my leadership, I knew that many clients and staff were waiting to see how I would handle things. Robert's brief but disruptive visit had planted doubts that I had to get rid of right away. In front of hundreds of workers in our largest auditorium, I called an all-company meeting as my first formal act as CEO. Despite my heart thumping, I spoke steadily. I started by saying, "Many of you have known me since I was a kid running through these halls. I am solely recognized by others as Richard's grandchild. As your CEO, I would like to formally introduce myself today and discuss my goals for our future collaboration." I described my goals for the business, which included increasing R&D spending, developing a more inclusive corporate culture, and growing our cutting-edge product lines while bolstering our core offerings. I openly admitted my youth and inexperience. I'm intelligent enough to pay attention to the professionals in this room, but I won't act as though I knew everything I told them. This business was founded by my grandfather on honesty and creativity. I plan to uphold that tradition while offering a new viewpoint on the difficulties that lie ahead. Prolonged staff members were the first to give support, and the reaction was cautiously favorable. In the days that followed, I spoke with department heads, listening more than I spoke, and starting to build connections that would be essential to my success. Even though he was not allowed on corporate property, Robert wasn't going quietly. He started reaching out to customers and spreading unfounded reports about Parker Innovations' instability. Concerns regarding the impact of family dysfunction on their contracts were voiced by a few of our more traditional clients. He is attempting to depress the value of our shares. Over supper, Grandpa watched while we talked about the situation. Uncertainty is created by the traditional corporate raider strategy. Watch as the company's worth declines, then intervene with buyer allies to save it. He can't purchase shares, though I brought up the fact that he has no personal funds and that whatever he stole from his mother has been frozen. A desperate man should never be taken lightly. Grandpa cautioned, particularly one who has experienced public humiliation. His caution turned out to be accurate. Our CFO, James Wilson, arrived in my office 3 days later, looking pale. He slid a tablet over my desk and stated, "We have a situation. A hostile takeover bid has been announced by DG Future. A 20% premium above the present stock price is being offered to shareholders." Our primary rival was DG Future, whom Robert had previously worked for before he met my mother. It was no accident that they were connected. Robert is now part of their acquisition team as a special advisor. James went on to say that he had first-hand knowledge of our financial weaknesses. The news came as a bodily shock. DG's future was bigger and wealthier than ours. A protracted takeover conflict might deplete our resources and divert attention from our main objective. Even worse, the premium offer may tempt our public shareholders who own that critical 5%. I convened an urgent meeting with our legal counsel and executive team. As we considered our alternatives, the atmosphere was gloomy. "We could use a poison pill," Martin said, alluding to a defensive tactic that would make purchasing our shares unaffordable. Susan Chin pointed out that such would momentarily shield us. However, it might also frighten clients and investors. It appears desperate. As the conversation went on, I noticed that I was thinking more about Robert than business tactics. What was his true desire? Of course, retribution, but also wealth and prestige. The man's ego required continual stimulation. I have another thought. Finally, I said, one that offers Robert precisely what he wants, but not in the way he anticipates receiving it. After Victor Reynolds, CEO of DG Futures, asked for a meeting to discuss their offer, the idea came together over the course of the following 48 hours. To everyone's amazement, I agreed right away. Our headquarters was to host the gathering on Friday morning. Robert appeared smug in his new position as special advisor, while Victor came with his entourage of lawyers and executives. Grandpa and our executive team were waiting in our largest conference room when I met them. When Robert noticed that my mother was also there, his eyes narrowed, quietly seated in the corner. "I'm glad you came," I said warmly. "I wanted to show you something before we talk about your acquisition offer." James began playing a video on the big screen after I gave him a nod. 3 months prior to Robert proposing to my mother, it featured Robert and Victor Reynolds in a hotel bar. I can provide you with exclusive knowledge about Parker's latest endeavor in quantum encryption. On the recording, Robert was saying, "Once, Richard Parker had faith in me. Catherine is my spouse. Everything will be available to me in a short while." Victor seems uneasy during the recording. Corporate espionage is what that sounds like. That is not how Robert DG's future works. What do you wish to be recorded? Robert gave a shrug. Their whole R&D roadmap is on a silver platter for you. When this is finished, I just need a position and a percentage. I turned to Victor and paused the video. This is one of 6 recordings we have of Robert's attempts to sell private information to different rivals. Do you want to see them too? Victor's expression had gone blank. He looked across at Robert. You admitted to me that you were worried about Parker's financial security. Regarding stolen trade secrets, you remained silent. Now Robert was perspiring. This is clearly manipulated. Victor, they are in a grave situation. We have already brought criminal charges for attempted fraud and corporate espionage. I slid a document across the table and interrupted. Mr. Reynolds, please save this copy for your records. Although we don't think Future approved of Robert's behavior, we wanted to make sure you knew everything before we started talking about a purchase. Although Victor Reynolds was a shark in the business world, he established DG Future by being known for his fierce yet lawful rivalry. He was obviously concerned about the ramifications of being linked to business espionage. With immediate effect, Mr. Blackwell's advising position with DG Future is terminated. I think we should put off any purchase talks until after internal evaluation, as he announced, standing up. He leaped to his feet. Robert, this is not possible. You broke an agreement with us by withholding important information. Victor gave a chilly response. Regarding possible liability concerns, my legal team will get in contact. The crew from DG Futures filed out. Robert betrayed me. His poise was utterly destroyed. Do you believe you have won? It's not over yet. I still have copies of private papers. I'll let the highest bidder buy them. You don't. In fact, Susan mentioned the materials you downloaded with confidence. We kept an eye on all access. Once we recognized what you were doing, we made the complex fakes you have. Any competitor who uses that information will be committing mistakes worth millions of dollars. Robert's face went pale as he became aware of how grave his error had been. In addition, my mother said, approaching him for the first time, with proof of your attempts to defraud me and the business, the divorce papers have been filed on the basis of fraud. No resolution will be reached. Robert hurriedly searched the room but could find no one to sympathize with. This is illegal. This is not how you can frame me. Put you in a frame, I asked, naively. We have recordings of you voluntarily trying to commit crimes. Your credentials were used to access each document. Every conversation took place precisely as we had described. When Grandpa did speak, it was quietly but with the authority of decades. You attempted to take my daughter's trust and my granddaughter's birthright. Did you honestly believe that I wouldn't keep them safe? At that point, security and 2 policemen entered. "Robert Blackwell," said a cop, "we have an arrest warrant for you on fraud and attempted corporate espionage allegations." The audience fell silent as Robert, still claiming innocence, was brought away in handcuffs. We had been preparing for this showdown for weeks, and it ended with Robert's total defeat rather than a corporate takeover. With hesitation, my mother came up to me. I hugged Madison and interrupted her. "But I don't expect forgiveness." We were both surprised, even while I still harbored hatred. Witnessing her confront Robert let me realize that she was also a victim. "Mom, we'll work on it," I murmured softly. One day at a time, I was filled with resolve as I looked around at our executive team people who had risked their lives to back a CEO who was 22 years old. "Let's resume our work now. We have a business to manage." Grandpa continued to observe me with that mix of pride and judgment I'd learned to recognize as everyone filed out. "Good job," he remarked plainly. "You did more than just keep the business safe. In doing so, you improved your standing with the board, our staff members, and even rival businesses." With the excitement from the confrontation finally subsiding, I fell into a chair. "The best taught me." Grandpa grinned. "Madison, no, you're taking your own approach, and it should be just that way." I was getting used to my new position as CEO of Parker Innovations 3 months after the dramatic confrontation with Robert. The change had not gone smoothly. Industry observers were skeptical of my ability to successfully run a $120 million company, and I had made my fair share of rookie blunders. But as the weeks went by, I became more assured of my choices and gained the respect of my coworkers who could see that I was eager to learn and pay attention. Robert's legal issues had rapidly gotten worse. Investigators found evidence of similar operations with 2 other rich families in separate states after he was arrested. He was now facing numerous fraud accusations and would probably be imprisoned for a number of years. Although the issue temporarily made headlines in the corporate world, Parker Innovations' reputation for integrity was actually strengthened by our open and honest handling of the matter. My mother and I were gradually getting along again. The treachery was deeply painful. She wasn't malevolent, though, as Grandpa had foreseen, rather, she was incredibly defective and susceptible to manipulation by someone who had researched her weaknesses. She was sincerely trying to regain our trust after going to treatment to recognize her pattern of unhealthy relationships. During a challenging dinner chat at my new apartment, she confessed that I've been a bad mother. "I frequently prioritized my needs over yours." "Not all the time," I reminded her, remembering times when we had a real connection as kids. "But I did it so frequently that it started to become a habit." She gave a sorrowful nod. "I'm attempting to comprehend why my therapist believes that I've been attempting to fill the vacuum your father left by pursuing men who are incomparable. Although it wasn't a justification, it was an explanation that made it easier for me to start forgiving her." We decided to have weekly meals as a safe haven where we could gradually mend the company's damaged infrastructure. I was making adjustments to move us forward while respecting Grandpa's legacy. Sales of our first significant product launch under my direction, an improved cybersecurity platform that had been in the works for years, surpassed forecasts by 30%. Grandpa had first questioned but later endorsed a more aggressive marketing strategy that I had pushed. Innovation isn't limited to goods. As we celebrated the launch's success, I told him, it has to do with how we show ourselves to the outside world. After the strain of Robert's schemes was over, Grandpa's condition had significantly improved. Even though he was technically retired, he continued to work 3 days a week, giving advice when needed but gradually letting me take the lead. What brings me the most joy? As we went over the quarterly reports in his home study one evening, he commented, "Observing you make choices would have prevented me from making wise choices that would never have occurred to me. I know I made the proper decision at that point." I gathered the executive team 6 months after assuming leadership to share my all-encompassing plan for Parker Innovations' future. The plan called for building a foundation to support STEM education for disadvantaged children, investing extensively in artificial intelligence research, and entering emerging industries. The foundation of Parker's innovations was the idea that technology should make people's lives better. I informed them that I wanted us to strengthen our commitment to that goal through corporate citizenship as well as our products. Susan Chen, now a useful mentor, grinned approvingly. She remarked, "I think you might build a greater company, but Richard built a great one." I threw a dinner party at my place that night for the core group of people who had supported me during the crisis. As we ate dessert on my balcony with a view of the city, Grandpa Susan, James Martin, and a few other important allies joined me in toasting to everyone who had supported me. When there was every reason to be skeptical, "Without your help, I wouldn't be here," I said. "Madison," Grandpa shot back, lifting his glass, who demonstrated that she deserved support even though she didn't need it. Later, just as the visitors were departing, my mother showed up out of the blue. No one had invited her. Realizing that familial strife would only exacerbate these commercial connections, which were still too young and delicate. However, she arrived with urgent news. She showed me the divorce papers and declared it final. I have chosen to donate the settlement money to a foundation that supports victims of financial theft. It was a modest but significant move. It was the first instance of my mother prioritizing others over herself that I could recall. Although the gesture did not change the past, it did pave the way for a new future in our partnership. Grandpa stayed after everyone had gone, watching the city lights from my balcony. "What's on your mind?" I joined him in asking. "Your father," he acknowledged. "He would have been really pleased with the woman you have grown into." I started crying uncontrollably when my dad was brought up. "Like you. I still miss him every day." Grandpa spoke quietly. "But in you, I see him. His honesty and originality. I can also see how strong your grandmother is. When I offered you the company," he turned to face me directly. "It wasn't only your familial ties, it was because, in addition to your unique qualities, you represent the best in all of us." It had been a challenging and agonizing trip from that birthday celebration to this point. However, I had not felt at peace in months as I stood there with my grandfather. The most crucial skills I've learned, I realized, are the ones you can't teach in business school. The betrayal had made me mature more quickly than I had anticipated, discover strength I didn't know I had, and fully comprehend the responsibility that came with my inheritance. Have faith in your gut, but double-check everything. Do not become cynical. Instead, be ready for treachery. Don't back down, even if it means being by yourself. Grandpa gave a nod. Perhaps the most significant family isn't based solely on blood, but also on who supports you in your hour of need. I sat by myself as he departed that evening, gazing out at the metropolis where Parker Innovations had established itself as a reputable brand. I had inherited more than just a business from my grandfather. He had provided me with the chance to learn more about my true self and my potential. It would not be an easy journey ahead. I would continue to encounter skepticism, experience new problems, and make blunders. I was where I belonged. Though, and I know that today, I was doing just what I was supposed to. Have you ever experienced someone you trusted betraying you? What did you take away from the experience and how did you respond to it? Please share your stories in the comments section. Please subscribe to hear more life lessons from unexpected locations if this adventure spoke to you. And keep in mind that sometimes the people who want to restrict you are the ones who reveal your true limitlessness. I appreciate you listening, and I hope you have the fortitude to remain strong throughout your own truth-telling times.